I don't usually answer calls after midnight. My phone lights up, hums against the nightstand, and I let it go dark. Most of the time, it's spam. Or someone I don't have the energy for. But last night, I saw her name. And suddenly I wasn't tired anymore. I'll back up. Most evenings, I close out my shift at the coffee shop and stay a little longer than I need to. Not because I like cleaning, trust me, I don't, but because the place feels quieter when it's just me. No milk steamers hissing, no rush of footsteps. Just the tick of the wall clock and the faint smell of espresso that's sunk into the wood. That's usually when she comes in. Not every night, not like clockwork, but often enough that I started noticing. Always late, after work. Always the same order, black coffee, no sugar. She drinks half of it here, half on the walk home. The first time, I didn't think she remembered me. I hadn't seen her in years, since I was a kid, running down her street with untied shoelaces, looking for excuses to pass her house. She'd been my neighbor then. My friend's mom. The woman who once patched my scraped knee with steady hands and a laugh that made me stare longer than a 12-year-old should. Now she was here, in my shop, 20 years later. And when she said my name the first night, casual as anything, "Didn't you used to live on Oak Street?" It was like someone had reached through time and tapped me on the shoulder. She looks older, sure. So am I. But it's not the kind of older that pushes you away. Her hair's pulled back, streaked with silver at the edges. There's a crease between her brows, the kind that only comes from thinking too hard about other people. And when she smiles, soft, careful, I feel that stupid, familiar warmth in my chest. The one I thought I'd outgrown. We don't talk much. That's the strange part. She orders, I hand her the cup, maybe she asks how classes are going or if I'm still drawing on the side. Little things. But the pauses carry more weight than the words. I find myself noticing details I shouldn't, the way she folds the napkin in half before setting it down, the way her eyes flick toward my hands when I write her order. I don't mean to, but I save her receipt once. Her name printed in faded black ink. I crumple it later, embarrassed. Loneliness has a way of making you hold on to crumbs. My phone is full of unsent texts, half-typed messages to people I haven't spoken to in months. Sometimes I scroll through them at night. It's easier than admitting I don't know who I'd send them to anymore. Then last night happened. I was brushing my teeth when the phone lit up. Midnight. Her name glowing against the dark. For a moment, I thought I'd imagined it. My heart was doing something it hadn't done in years, racing without permission. I let it ring once. Twice. By the third, my hand moved on its own. Hello. My voice sounded too young, too awake. There was a pause on the other end. I could hear her breathing, steady but unsure. Then she said my name, softer this time. Like she wasn't sure she had the right number. And just like that, everything I thought I'd tucked away, the childhood crush, the late-night coffees, the silence between us, it all shifted. Because you don't call someone at midnight for nothing. And I knew, before she even explained, that my life had just tilted off its axis. Her voice on the line was low, almost like she regretted dialing at all. I shouldn't have called this late, she said. But she stayed on the line. I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the floor, toothbrush abandoned in the sink. It's fine, I said too quickly. Then softer, I'm glad you did. There was another pause. Not heavy, just delicate. I was walking home, she said finally. And I passed Oak Street. I don't know why, but I thought of you. I swallowed, because Oak Street wasn't just a road, it was summers the first never wanted to end. Her backyard where I sat with her son, trading baseball cards. The evenings she'd bring us lemonade, and I'd catch myself watching the way the glass sweated in her hands. Too young to understand why I stared. Old enough to remember it forever. I still think about it, I said, surprising myself. That street. The way the air smelled after it rained. She gave the faintest laugh, tired but real. You were always more observant than the others. Always looking around like you were going to draw it all later. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was something else, like we were standing on a bridge we weren't supposed to cross. She was the one who cut it short. Anyway. I just wanted to hear a familiar voice. I'll let you sleep. But she didn't hang up. And neither did I. The next evening, she came by the shop earlier than usual. No coffee this time, tea. Jasmine. She said she was trying to sleep better. I wiped down the counter, pretending not to notice the way she lingered by the pastry case without really looking at it. She wasn't here for the tea. You're quiet tonight, I said, sliding the cup toward her. So are you. She smiled faintly. Maybe we balance each other out. I almost laughed, but it caught in my throat. There was something reckless about the way she looked at me then, direct, like she wasn't going to pretend we were just barista and customer anymore. I asked the wrong question. Or maybe the right one. Do you miss it? Oak Street. Her hand stilled on the napkin she'd been folding. She didn't look up. I miss a lot of things I can't get back. I wanted to ask what, but I didn't. Instead, I noticed how carefully she folded that napkin into quarters, then smoothed it flat with her fingertips. Like if she kept it neat enough, nothing else would fall apart. Inside me, something was pulling two ways. The part that remembered her as untouchable, someone else's mother, someone I shouldn't even think of like this. And the part that felt the years between us shrink every time she glanced at me like she was seeing the boy I used to be and the man I was now, both at once. When she stood to leave, she touched my arm lightly, almost by accident. Just a brush, but it was enough. I don't know why that moment stayed with me, I thought later, lying awake, my arm still remembering the warmth. Maybe because it felt like someone finally saw me. The next week, she stopped coming to the shop. At first, I told myself she was busy. Work, errands, life. But by the fourth night, the place felt emptier than usual. The clock ticked too loud. My hands moved too fast wiping tables that didn't need wiping. When she finally did walk in, I almost didn't recognize her. Hair pulled loose instead of tied back. No briefcase. No careful posture. Just a little more tired than usual. You disappeared, I said before I could stop myself. She gave a small shrug. Didn't mean to. Her voice was soft, but there was a distance in it. She didn't meet my eyes right away, only after she set her bag down. Long week, she added, like that explained everything. I nodded, pretending I believed her. But the space between us felt heavier. She sat at the corner table instead of the counter. I brought her tea over anyway. Jasmine again. She looked up, surprised, almost amused. You remember, she said. Some things stick. Her gaze held mine a second too long. Then she looked away, stirring her tea without tasting it. I wanted to ask what had really kept her away, but the words stayed caught somewhere in my throat. Instead, I sat across from her. Not planned. Just, like my body decided before my mind did. That's when the bell over the door chimed. It was Mark, an old friend from school. He hadn't changed much, loud voice, wide smile, the kind of guy who slapped your shoulder harder than he needed to. Man, it's been forever, he said, dragging me into conversation, not noticing the way my eyes kept drifting back to her. She sat quietly, hands wrapped around her cup, eyes lowered. Mark followed my glance eventually. His grin tilted. Don't tell me you've got a thing for older women now, he said, too loud, laughing. The silence that followed was brutal. I felt my face heat. She didn't flinch, didn't look up, just sipped her tea slowly, like his words had passed straight through her. But I saw it, the way her hand tightened on the cup, just for a second. After he left, the air between us felt fragile. "I should go," she said, standing too quickly. I wanted to stop her. Apologize. Say something that would erase the echo of Mark's laugh. But all I managed was, "Wait." She hesitated, halfway turned. "I don't care what he said," I whispered. My voice felt too raw, too bare. Her eyes finally lifted to mine. Something flickered there, fear, maybe. Or something dangerously close to want. For a moment, neither of us moved. The cafe around us blurred, soundless. My hand twitched, half reaching across the table. Her lips parted, just slightly, like she was about to speak. And then she stepped back. Just enough to break the spell. "Good night," she said, barely audible. I sat there long after she left, my hand still resting on the table, fingers curled like I'd almost touched hers. It was raining the night she let me walk her home. Not pouring, just a steady drizzle that blurred the streetlights and slicked the sidewalks. She protested at first. "You don't have to," she said, pulling her coat tighter around her shoulders. "I know," I replied. "I want to." We walked side by side, not touching. The sound of rain filled the silence, steady and heavy. Every so often, her umbrella shifted just enough to cover me too. I pretended not to notice. Halfway down Oak Street, she stopped. Not for the rain, not for her shoes. Just, stopped. "I shouldn't be here with you," she said, her voice steady but low. The words sank between us like stones in water. "Why not?" I asked, though I already knew. Her mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "You were just a boy the last time I saw you. Now," she trailed off, eyes on the wet pavement. "It feels wrong. Doesn't it?" I wanted to say no. Wanted to tell her I'd been carrying the thought of her for half my life. But the words jammed in my throat. Instead, I said, "It doesn't feel wrong to me." Her breath hitched, barely audible over the rain. She glanced at me then, quick, sharp, like she was afraid she'd stare too long. We walked again, slower this time. The distance between our arms felt like it was buzzing. I kept imagining brushing against her hand, just once, like it would answer everything. At her building, she paused under the awning, closing her umbrella carefully, deliberately. Anything to keep from meeting my eyes. "You know people would talk," she said finally. "Your friends. My neighbors. Everyone would wonder what you're doing with a woman who's what?" I cut in. Her lips pressed together, the rain dripping from her hairline. She didn't finish. Something inside me cracked then, not anger, exactly. More like the ache of holding back too long. "I don't care what they'd say," I whispered. "I don't care if it's wrong. I stopped." The words threatened to rush out too fast, too exposed. She looked up at me, finally. Her eyes were tired, but there was something raw behind them. Something that matched the storm in my chest. "Don't," she said softly. Not firm, not commanding. Just, fragile. Like she was telling herself as much as me. For a moment, the world shrank to the space between us, the rain dripping off the awning, the faint hum of traffic, her hand resting on the strap of her bag. My own hand twitched at my side, aching to reach for hers. My lips parted. And then I froze. Because if I moved, if I said it, whatever it was, nothing would go back to the way it had been. She seemed to know that too. Her gaze held mine, steady now, unflinching. And the question hung there, heavier than the rain: do you want me to step closer? Or do you want me to leave? After that night under the awning, things shifted. I expected her to come by the shop, maybe even linger longer than usual. But she didn't. Days stretched without a glimpse of her. I told myself not to check the door every time the bell chimed. Not to hope. But the habit dug in anyway. On the fourth day, she appeared, but different. A careful version of herself. No umbrella, hair neat, blazer pressed. She ordered her black coffee, not tea. Sat at the counter, not the corner. Everything neat. Like she was erasing the cracks that had shown before. "How've you been?" I asked, casual, too casual. "Busy." One word, clipped. She smiled politely, but her eyes didn't join in. I wanted to ask what had changed. If she thought about that night like I did. If the silence between us haunted her too. But she kept the napkin folded clean, untouched, and didn't stay long enough for me to find out. The next evening, I didn't go to work. Told the manager I was sick. I wasn't. I just couldn't stand waiting in that cafe, hoping for her to walk in like she used to. Instead, I wandered. Streets I hadn't walked in years, circling Oak Street until my feet slowed in front of the house she used to live in. Lights off. Curtains drawn. Empty now. The ghost of summers pressed against the glass. My phone buzzed once. A new message. From her. "I'm sorry I called you that night. I shouldn't have." I read it 5 times, fingers hovering over the screen. I typed a reply, 3 different ones. Deleted all of them. The truth was, I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt paused. Like life forgot to finish the sentence. The following week, she didn't come by at all. I worked my shifts in silence, the hum of the milk steamer louder than usual, my reflection in the cafe window looking older somehow. One night, near closing, I saw her. Across the street. Not coming in. Just standing there, half hidden under a streetlight. She looked, conflicted. Like she'd walked all the way here and changed her mind at the last second. For a moment, I thought she'd cross. The bell would chime, she'd order jasmine tea, sit in the corner again. But she didn't. She turned, walked away. I almost ran after her. Almost. Instead, I stood there with the rag in my hand, watching the glass door stay empty. Later, in bed, I drafted another message, "You don't have to be sorry." My thumb hovered over send. Then I locked the phone and left it unsent. It happened in the least dramatic place imaginable, her kitchen. I hadn't planned to be there. She'd forgotten her scarf at the cafe, and I told myself it was only right to return it. A good excuse, something to keep me from admitting I just wanted to see her again. She opened the door like she was expecting someone else. The look on her face flickered between relief and regret. "You didn't have to bring it," she said, taking the scarf from my hand. "I know." I lingered on the threshold. The air smelled faintly of chamomile tea and rain-soaked pavement. "Can I come in? Just for a minute?" She hesitated. Then stepped aside. The kitchen was warm but quiet, the kind of quiet that holds its breath. She set the scarf on the counter, smoothing it out as if it needed taming. "You've been avoiding me," I said before I could stop myself. My voice wasn't sharp. Just, tired. Her shoulders stiffened, then dropped. "I thought it was better that way." "Better for who?" She didn't answer. Instead, she opened a cupboard, pulled down 2 mugs, and filled them with hot water. The steam rose between us, fragile, like something we could both break with a single wrong word. Finally, she said, "I'm not supposed to want this." The honesty of it knocked the air out of me. She didn't look at me when she said it, eyes on the teabag string slipping into her mug. "I know," I whispered. "But you do." That made her pause. Hands still, lips pressing together. Then she let out a quiet laugh, tired, uneven. "You're too young to carry this kind of weight. And you're too stubborn to admit you need someone," I shot back, softer than I meant to. The silence stretched. I almost filled it with another apology, but then she finally looked at me. Really looked. Her eyes weren't guarded this time. They were raw, and I could see everything she'd been holding back, the loneliness, the fear, the pull she kept resisting. "I don't want to ruin you," she said, voice breaking just a little. "You won't." I swallowed hard. "But if you walk away now, it'll ruin me." For a long moment, we just stood there, two mugs cooling between us, years and rules and doubts stacked like invisible walls. Then she reached across the counter. Her fingers brushed mine. Not by accident. Not tentative. Just enough to let me know she'd stopped running. I didn't move. Didn't grab her hand, didn't lean across the space. I just let the touch settle, quiet and steady. And for the first time in weeks, maybe years, I felt like the silence wasn't suffocating us. It was holding us. She gave the smallest nod. Barely more than a breath. "Okay," she whispered. Time didn't stop after that night in her kitchen. It never does. She still came by the cafe, but not every day. Some weeks she skipped altogether. When she did come, she ordered jasmine tea more often than coffee. She sat in the corner sometimes at the counter. No routine. No promises. Just, showing up when she could. And I stopped waiting at the door like I used to. It wasn't that I wanted her less, it was that I finally trusted she'd return, in her own way, in her own time. We never talked about us. No labels, no declarations. The word love never once came up. What grew between us didn't need it. It was in the small things, the folded napkin she'd slide across the counter, the way she'd leave her scarf on the back of a chair so I'd have to bring it to her again, the silence that didn't weigh us down anymore. Sometimes, we walked together after closing. Not every night, just when the air was soft enough, the streets quiet enough. Once, we stopped at the same park bench where I used to sit with her son years ago, trading cards and secrets only kids think are important. She rested her hand near mine, not quite touching. I thought about the boy I was then, and how he'd never believe the life I was living now. One morning, at exactly 8:47, she called. Not late at night. Not with hesitation in her voice. Just to ask if I'd had breakfast. I laughed because it was so ordinary, so unremarkable, and yet, it felt like the kind of question you only ask someone who belongs in your life. She's not mine in the way stories usually tell it. She's still older, still careful, still herself. And I'm still learning, still unsteady, still me. But together, we found something that doesn't need to be explained out loud. The other night, I brewed jasmine tea for both of us in her kitchen. She didn't say thank you, and I didn't need her to. She just smiled, the kind that holds every pause, every near miss, every midnight call. The kind that said, we made it through the silence. I don't know what the future looks like. I don't know how other people would name this, or if they'd understand. But I know this, when she sets her cup down, I catch her glance. Quiet, steady. A look that only belongs to me. And that's enough. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next?